So this video is meant to dispel some belief systems that are out there that until they're recognized and narrowed down to specifically where they're coming from, we won't be able to identify where the problem is, and we won't be able to do anything about these issues because these things that are existing in society and the way we think and the way we see each other and the way they're promoted by the mainstream Western kind of belief system, the way to allow these destructive and self-destructive systems, the way to allow them to continue on for a profit is to water them down into this idea that these are human issues. This is a universal problem that relates to all people. When as a matter of fact, these are not human issues. These side effects that are a result to belief systems and ways of living are not universal. They're very related to a certain demographic of people. And because people are too scared or too politically correct to put it all together, we just accept them and allow them. And what happens is that these ignorant ass people, these people who are empowered by the internet, hidden behind these little keyboards, these people feel that they can just say and do whatever they want because there's no accountability there. And a big part of why these systems are meant to be seen as human issues and watered down as they are is because this avoids accountability. It avoids responsibility. And like I've said in previous videos, these power and control dynamics that are put around the world, put on people around the world, are heavily related to and mirrored from the narcissistic dynamics that they have with the people that they're preying upon. And for most people who know about these systems, they know that a big part of the narcissistic agenda is to project onto you problems and things that they're doing to you, to guilt you, to shame you, and also to hide their actions against you. So I wrote down a list of things that we accept very loosely because, some people who can see through the bullshit, we don't really accept it. We see what's going on. But for people who are not really aware, like the mainstream minds, the people who are just not at all critically thinking about what's going on, they accept a lot of this shit as human issues. But when you really think about it, where did this stuff come from? Where did these belief systems come from? They're not universal belief systems. Like I said, this list, these things that I'm getting ready to list off, this is not to push guilt or shame on anybody. This is to state the facts. And for the people who are aware of this, it's just going to be another confirmation of what we've already been knowing. But for the people who aren't aware of this, they can now see how these belief systems exist inside of them and do something about them. Because until we narrow down where this stuff is coming from, nothing's going to change. Like with all this stuff that I'm getting ready to list off, like I said, with the narcissist, when they project onto you, when they hide behind these programs, they're not only just hiding there and staying quiet, they're also projecting themselves as superheroes, as the most intelligent beings. So there's another side to why these programs of hiding and projecting onto you, they don't exist just to hide and distract and deflect from the existence of these programs. They're also building up themselves as the leaders of humanity. So this is the why part of this storyline in reference to the future and the control and the mind of engagement in real time. The why of the past and the present is to keep you down, to keep you low. The why of the present and the future is to keep this certain demographic of people above you, to keep you following them. So the starting of this list came when I heard in a clip that I shared in one of the mixtapes that I made just recently. I think it was Dr. John Henrik Clarke stating, and we already knew this, but to hear it put to words is a different story. When he actually said that this whole men and women equality issue is not a worldwide, it's not a human issue. This is very specific to so-called white people or Europeans. Their relationship with their women is different than our relationship with our women. The ancestors held women to a very, very high level of existence. Women being seen as creator beings, goddesses, gods. Cultures around the world held women to the highest of existence, the highest forms of deities. So the question of equality, women with men, is absurd to even comprehend. This whole equality issue is very specific to a certain group of people who do not have that same relationship. But we see it. It's sold through the mainstream, through Western, the so-called evolved version of society. They're still fighting and talking about how women need to be equal to men. And what triggered the response to make this video in this moment, I was just watching a comedy little skit of a woman talking about dating and how men have to go up to women, and her saying in part of that skit, referring to how women are not equal to men in society, and that being a known belief system, so known that she can joke about it. It's a thing. And it triggered my memory of that video of Dr. John Henrik Clarke saying that, no, this is not a universal thing. This is very specific. But when you have Netflix comedians speaking to the world, stating these facts in their comedy, these things become human belief systems. It's not. So what are the downsides to that? What are the side effects to that? People start to mimic that behavior. And this is what's happening. People around the world are starting to treat women, and they're not starting to, it's been happening, but very generally, the accepting of these belief systems, when it becomes comedy, when it becomes an intellectual discussion that's just accepted as a reality, this kind of shit becomes part of your existence. And people start to take on these qualities, these ways of interaction. Women start to accept their lower tier existence in reality, and men start to build up their ego, we're the best, we're the number one, and more separation, more division comes from that belief system. We just see it as comedy. We just see it as, oh, this is just a thing. No, this is very specific. So not only by sharing this does this help people not assume those belief systems, but also allows you to spark this fire that gets you back into your center being, separates you from this shit, sparks people onto the path of realizing that this is not who you are. Women, you are not second to men. You don't even talking about equality with men is the mind control. It's the double down mind control. To speak on the equality of men and women is to assume the belief system that women are not equal to men. You're fighting an illusory fight, and it's on purpose. So that really started this list that I'm getting ready to go down. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it started this looking into, well, if that is a thing that is being pushed as a universal belief system, what are some of the other things that are existing out there that we just accept? That because of political correctness or people don't want to rock the boat, they just don't really say it. They don't really call it out. Well, I'm saying you need to call this shit out. And people get real offended once you start talking about this stuff. When I start mentioning melanin and all this other stuff, oh, look in the comment section on some of these videos. People lose their shit because they're losing power. They want the focus to be on them. This is that narcissistic programming. If you are just healing yourself, we're having to deal with hundreds and hundreds of years of mind control. We're undoing this shit by calling it out, calling it like it is. And the people who have been benefiting from that control over you during those hundreds of years are so lost in their own bullshit, in their own mind controls, that they don't want you to heal. They don't want you to change. So they will attack you in whatever way possible, shame you, guilt you, in whatever way possible to keep you from getting better. And when you listen to this list, you'll start to see that part of our getting better is going to involve separating ourselves from certain people, from these people who have these belief systems, from these individuals who act this way. So, like I said, the first one, this whole men and women equality shit, it's very specific. It's very Eurocentric, westernized. This is not something that our ancestors even had to think of. There's a compatibility with the masculine and the feminine that far surpasses even the idea of separation, even the idea of being an equal. It's bullshit. It's a new world belief system. Don't fall for it. And all these movements that are built on top of it, this whole feminine movement, it's built on top of an illusion. It's not power. It's artificial power. It's built on top of a lie. It's not coming from, it's like the civil rights movement. They're not talking about the origins of racism. They're not talking about empowering themselves and connecting to the original links to this land and the indigenous people around the world. They're talking about equality with these fucked up ass people. These slave masters and these people who are just psychologically off in so many different ways. So just like the civil rights was trying to get equal with those assholes, feminism is women trying to get equal with those assholes. Same shit. It's a lie on top of a lie. And your politics is the same. Your mainstream politics is just a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. Trying to pick your leader in this ocean of assholes. Because once you get into that system, you're just accepting these individuals and their belief systems for what they are. And you're only going to be able to go so far within their system once that happens. This is why they push those systems so far, so hard. They push them because they want you to believe that this is the evolutionary peak of reality. And you'll see that these beliefs, this list of these belief systems is part of that belief, is part of that anchoring your consciousness into a very narrow path. You can only go so far. There's only one direction you can go, the direction that they state you should go. And if you veer off of that path, something is wrong with you. And if they can't really nail down what's wrong with you, they'll project onto you something that is not true and something that is more reflective of how they are acting. So I wanted to make this short and just get through this list and not spend too much time, because overall my videos have been explaining these issues in so many different ways, kind of sideways. But with this video, I really wanted to nail it down so other people can expand upon it and other people can also feel for themselves the reality in these observations. So, like I said, men and women equality, very Eurocentric. It's accepted as a human thing. It's not. Heliocentrism. When did that start? Who is it centered around? Who are the people in control right now who are pushing heliocentrism right now? You don't even have to go too far. Look at the NASA program. NASA built by the Nazis, the Western world. Heliocentrism is a Western belief system. Racism, white supremacy is a Western belief system. Don't let them shame and guilt you into thinking otherwise. It's not a human universal thing. So-called white people came onto the scene, took you out, did a massive worldwide genocide, physically, intellectually, spiritually, installed this entirely new belief system called heliocentrism, which elevated their intellects, their leaders, their education system to the most evolved version of humanity. And what's going on right now is a result of that. And you even have flat earthers who will mention this. They'll talk about heliocentrism being a Western belief system, and our ancestors had a different version of reality. They'll reference the Inca, the Maya, the Egyptian. They'll mention those ancient cosmologies, but they, for whatever reason, and I mentioned those reasons before, they will not connect that to the other systems of mind control, like racism and the groups of people who are surrounding that. They won't make that connection because they're too fucking chicken shit to step out on a limb and say anything, because they're trying to maintain their subscriber base. If they mention that Europeans were a part of this mind control, how many subscribers are they going to lose? How much pushback are they going to get? They don't want to say that. So, men and women equality, heliocentrism, your entire everything that's built upon heliocentrism. NASA, SpaceX, the monkey evolution program, the Big Bang. This is not shit that our ancestors were connected to. This is not a human thing. And like I said, this is not to push blame or shame or guilt. This is just to say it so people can actually see it and feel it from a different angle. Because until it's said, it won't be seen. Do with it what you will, but this needs to be said. It needs to be seen. And I don't see enough people saying it. It's a secret thing. No, NASA is mostly so-called white people. Heliocentrism started with so-called white people. This men and women inequality shit started with so-called white people. Somebody need to say this shit. I don't give a fuck what happens. This shit needs to be said. In and around heliocentrism, you have this fear, this worldwide fear. They double down on that heliocentrism bullshit and extend this fear. Fear of asteroids, fear of Armageddon from being hit by an asteroid. We're all gonna fucking die. They even make movies about this shit, write books about this shit. So they created this artificial universe, sold it to the masses, and then installed this fear of destruction into your kids. See this from a perspective of your children seeing this shit in cartoons. This is not a light issue. This is not something that should just be pushed to the side. There's a very specific demographic of people who are lying to the masses to maintain their control over the masses of people. And it's not limited, like I said, it's not limited to only this demographic of people, but they are the cheerleaders. They are the front men. They are the politicians for the big government behind these systems. And just because they're only a part of it and not the whole system, just because they're not the whole system doesn't mean that they can't be held accountable for their actions within this system. I don't give a fuck how much your fucking feelings are hurt. This shit needs to be said. Look at all the side effects that women are having to deal with because of their belief system in reference to them not being equal to men. Look at the shockwave of shit that's going through to humanity. See, when you make this a human issue, you make it human problems. And until it's identified as not a human problem, the origin is not from humanity. It's from a specific demographic of people. Until it's said, these women are not going to empower themselves because they're going to have that weak-minded ass fucking belief system. And these asshole ass beta males that are out there are going to continue to empower themselves with these illusions. So, with this heliocentrism, with this fear of destruction, Armageddon, they can build on top of that forever. The Big Bang theory, bullshit, the monkey evolution, bullshit that comes from that. All the belief systems, like I said, the women are going to feel a certain way. What do humans feel when they think that they're just fucking animal monkeys? Look at the shockwave of that. Did our ancestors have a belief that we came from monkeys? Fuck no. Climate change. Now they're making themselves look like fucking superheroes because they're fixing the world. Not even talking about how they're fucking up the world. They just want to be seen for fixing the world. Just like these politicians. Look over here. Don't look over there. If you look over there, something's wrong with you. Hey, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're this, you're that. Look over here. Look at how amazing we are. We've done this. But you also fuck that. Yeah, who are you? What do you do? And like we're all knowing, this climate change shit, very specific, very Western, very new world. On top of heliocentrism, you have the space programming and everything that comes from that. So you have the alien agenda, you have the new age agenda, you have these good aliens and you have these bad aliens. You have these beliefs that we're going to colonize other planets, that we're going to the moon, that, oh, look at all the power that comes from the United States putting their flag on the moon and putting spaceships up there. Like all this bullshit. Lies. You have people getting tattoos of aliens and, believing that they're from some specific star system with this Andromeda galaxy and the Pleiadian, all this shit. This is not to say that these beings don't exist in some form. It's just to say that the universe that's being sold to you around this physical universe that's being sold to you around that, has side effects, destructive side effects. It's not to discredit any kind of like beings from the other dimensions and all this other stuff. No, I'm not talking about that. Our ancestors spoke of beings and dimensions and so on and so forth. We have that connection. We have that awareness. But the physical bullshit of sending your NASA spaceship to Mars and all that other stuff, straight up nonsense. How much money goes into that? Tax money. The shit you're working for. Food off of your children's plate into these illusions, into these lies. And you can't say anything about it because it makes people feel bad. Like this whole critical race shit. Don't talk about that. It's making us feel bad. You can't talk about heliocentrism. It's making us feel bad. Same shit, same way. They want to erase your perspectives of reality. And a way to erase your perspectives of reality is to make these belief systems a human issue. In your perspective, the way your elders, the way your ancestors saw and experienced what's going on doesn't matter anymore. Because the mainstream thought is the only thing that matters. So climate change, alien worship, like I said, colonizing other planets. Who thinks of this shit? If you have a relationship with this plane, a holistic relationship with this plane, why the fuck would you need to go anywhere else? Not to mention the fact that this is a complete illusion. That you're gonna go to the planet Mars and colonize it. How much money goes into that? How much belief goes into that? Kids growing up trying to be like Elon Musk. This is not a human thing. This is very specific. All of these belief systems are generated to create limitations. They're generated to keep you only going and thinking so far. One world government, the New World Order. Very Western, very New World The New World Order. Well, who were the people talking about the New World? When they came from Europe over to the United States, before it was the United States, they said with their manifest destiny that they were generating this new world. Come to the new world. Conveniently, people forget about that part of the story when they talk about the New World Order. They forget about how the New World belief system came to be and who was involved in that shit. Now it's just a human problem. Oh, we need to talk about the New World Order, where it's people of power that are against everybody in the world. White people too. You can't talk about racism in the New World Order. Why not? When that was the main issue when they were installing this idea of the New World before they came up with this whole New World Order shit. See, these are these individuals who want to control the dialogue, control the narrative. Because in that controlling of the narrative, these empowering perspectives get turned into blame, shame, and guilt. And everything gets watered down. And when that happens, they can maintain control and power. You didn't have the majority of the people of the world, the indigenous people of the world, trying to go out and colonize, dominate, control the whole world, killing the whole world, poisoning the whole world, using biochemical warfare against people of the world. That's not a thing. That's not a human thing. It's a Western Eurocentric thing. Or people say that one person was asking in the comment section, what do you mean when you say so-called white people? I say so-called white people and so-called black people because there are no white people, there are no black people. So that's to take the magic in some kind of way away from those terms, but still reference the group of people who are anchored in those belief systems. So yeah, the whole colonizing of the land, colonizing of planets, controlling, dominating the world. This is not a human thing. Genetic modification, it's not a human thing. It's a control-based thing. What are the side effects to all this shit? All this fake synthetic food, your Western diets. It weighs you down, creating all this obesity. Look at all the people of the world, the people who are living in a good harmony with their surroundings. Do you have obesity the way it exists in the Western world? Hell no. But look at the United States. This is why people hate the people in the United States. So unhealthy, obese, just consuming the whole fucking world and loving it, celebrating it. Look at your 4th of July. Look at your Christmas, your Thanksgiving. Just utter gluttony and sickness and disease being celebrated. This obesity problem, it's not a world human thing. This is a Western centered belief. Does that mean that there are no obese people around the world? Of course not. But it's turned into a business with the Western world, in and around so-called white people, the new world representatives. This LGBTQ gender stuff that's going on, all the confusion around like how many genders there are. This is not a human thing. This is a Western belief system. This is a Western mind control belief system. And this is not to say that there aren't LGBTQ people in other cultures around the world. No, it's not to say that. It's just to say that the politicizing of this as a human thing to install this belief system that there are more than one gender and this whole thing that's out there, this is part of the Western mindset. This was not something that our ancestors had issues with. This is a belief system that is very new world, and it's being pushed as a human thing. Like I said before, it's to push this idea of progressive thought. And when they're saying progressive, they're just really saying evolved thought. An evolved human would think like this. An evolved human would take this into consideration and act like this. And if you don't think and act like this, then you're not evolved. You're not progressive. Something's wrong with you. So yet another way to cause inconsistencies in your thought, in your belief, in your interactions. The emasculating of men, specifically so-called black men. It's not a human thing. It's very specific. And what's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of causing all this confusion in these storylines? It creates weak people, people who are not centered, anchored, have convictions in themselves, a strong sense of self. People who do not have that are weak and easily controlled. This is why these programs are pushed. And they hide behind this idea that they're pushing it for your benefit. They're pushing it because they are evolved. They are something to be attained. Their belief systems are something to be seen as higher than the people who came before us. When in fact, they're more illusions, more systems designed to control you. These dogs and cats, these pets in your house, up on your beds, in your licking all in your mouth and shit, that's not a fucking human thing. That's some nasty ass shit. This is used as a tool to make it seem like, oh, they're so loving. They're so this, they're so that. No, that shit is fucking nasty. Dog is not a man's best friend. A dog is a cool being, but to have that relationship as like a human thing, nah. And they're replacing these relationships with dogs, specifically dogs, because cats are usually on their own, but they're replacing these relationships for like parental relationships. People are raising these dogs and cats, or just taking care of these dogs like they're fucking kids. No, it's not the same thing. And when you do that, you're lowering your relationship with actual children, having them on par. No, it's not the same thing. And to even see that as a thing that people are believing more shows you that the child rearing in the Western world is seen from a basic survival mode. There's nothing deep there at all. If it's a thing that people are thinking that dogs are like the new kind of child to these parents, then your responsibility as a parent to these children is garbage. It's fucking trash. And it's built, like I said, basically just only on survival. And that's an example of how low we've really gotten. And like I said, because it's assumed, it's taken on as a human thing, this thing is spreading like wildfire, and it's not for our benefit. So with NASA, with your Western intellectual system, through the university system, you have this worshiping of technology. You have artificial intelligence. This is not a universal thing. A lot of people who are still connected with the land, with the earth, with their ancestors, see that this technology is a separation from nature. You cannot take away technology and the push towards humans merging with technology and all that other nonsense. You can't take away that relationship that has with the university system relationship with the Western world relationship with Eurocentric belief systems. There's no separation there. And part of that is this whole artificial intelligence shit and how that exists in the New Age community. Like I said in the previous video, channeling and that whole believing in that channeled information as something holy and so amazing. And they're just constantly buying into that, not even questioning if it's something that could be to your detriment, something that could be working against you. But like I said, these Western minds from these Western New World individuals jump headfirst into this, and everybody else just follows along. So artificial intelligence, this push towards technology, it's not a human thing. It's very specific. Hiding history, not a human thing. Very specific. Who needs to hide history? The criminals, the people who committed that genocide, the people who are still profiting from those crimes against our ancestors, against our elders. Those are the people who have to hide history. Those are the people who are having issues with this, what they're calling critical race theory. Why is that even a thing? And whose history is being hidden? What subjects are you not allowed to speak on? What subjects are you supposed to be like celebrating? Like I said in the last video, this whole ancient alien theorist perspectives on the History Channel and all this other shit. That's accepted. That's the NASA t-shirt that you get for your kid at Target. They want you to be a team. If you're not on that team, then you're an enemy. False flags, another version of hiding, another way to expand dominance and control. Do you have the Hawaiians, the indigenous people around the world? Are they, making these false flags? No. What's a part of those false flags? More power for these Western New World Eurocentric belief systems and these power grids. And constantly, when you bring up this stuff, people are saying, oh, false flags, this, that, anything dealing with all that stuff, the New World Order, They just water it down to just this is a bad guys versus the good guys. Conveniently not talking about the origins of these bad guy storylines. Be aware of the people who are going against you when you bring this shit up, because they might have some unconscious or even conscious programs that are working to maintain these systems. They might not even be aware of it. Some of them are. But part of that program is to downplay you, to project against you. So with these false flags, you have the destabilizing of entire nations. Why are they going around destabilizing nations? Why are they taking the land and the resources from these people? Is this a human thing? Do humans do this? Are the indigenous people going around the world? No, it's not. It's very specific. Assassinating our leaders. What kind of criminal fucked up mindset assassinates your leader and then makes a holiday in their honor? What kind of psychopathic mindset enslaves, lynch, hangs, creates Jim Crow, does all this shit, and it creates a month for those people to observe their history? And if you talk about a history that they're not comfortable with, you're ostracized. You're not part of the good ones. You're one of the bad ones. That's why Black History Month was created, to control what you talk about. It wasn't for your benefit. It's because so-called white people wanted to control what so-called black people were talking about, what they're thinking about, what they're celebrating, what they're remembering. This is psychopathic behavior. It's far beyond narcissism. And if you don't talk about it, nothing's going to be done about it. Because you're going to have these people who are trying to control the narrative and the dialogue, just like the Black History Month is meant to control the dialogue, control the narrative. These individuals in these truther communities who avoid this information, who avoid these subjects, they're responsible for the same shit. The White Jesus program around the world. You can go into every other house around the world and you'll see a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus person on the wall. This is not a human thing. You don't have Samoan people going around the world telling people to hang a picture of a Samoan Jesus on the wall or they'll fucking kill you or something's wrong with you because you're worshiping the wrong deity. And I wrote this whole list down. And the one thing that I didn't even write down, because it's just inherent with all these systems, is racism. Racism is not a human thing. Like I said, look at the people who benefit from these programs. Then you'll see what's going on here. Who benefits from racism? Like I said in the last video, you actually have a term called white privilege in these political programs where they have redlining, benefits so-called white people. The Homestead Act benefits so-called white people. The head right system benefiting so-called white people. Racism in general, in your justice system, in your education systems, in society in general. Look at your politics, in your workplace environments. Who does it benefit and who does it go against? That's not a human thing. So when people in these new age communities, in these truther communities, are getting on your case about how much you talk about racism, or when you bring it up in any kind of conversation with people and they want to downplay you for it, don't fall for that shit, because this is an issue that needs to be dealt with. This is a mind control program that they're trying to guilt and shame you from dealing with. We're talking about genocide, assassination, destabilizing of entire nations. That is the fucking new world order. So if these truthers are out there talking about anything involving the new world order and they don't say a fucking word about racism, the system of racism, white supremacy, and how it exists in the physical and the minds of the masses and the spiritual interactions of reality, then they're not dealing with truth. They're selling you something, and they're avoiding pertinent information and perspectives that deal with the healing, the health, and the welfare of your elders, of you, of your future generations. And if you don't have a problem with that, then you might be a part of the problem. So if you find yourself in these truth or community circles, if you engage in these conversations with people, do not hold back, because it takes the individual. It takes, when people start talking about this stuff, that's why I generally don't have these conversations with people as much as I used to, because they know where I'm coming from now. So people just don't bring it up anymore. But when these conversations come up, do not hold back. You have nothing to hide. You didn't do anything wrong. And usually the people who are around you, they didn't do anything wrong either. But if you avoid the subject, you are both doing something wrong. You're allowing these systems to continue to grow. And that's being complicit with the criminal actions of these individuals who are pushing these agendas forward at the expense of the masses of people around the world.